preparation and being prepared for something. And there's a couple points throughout the Bible where it kind of talks about something that we should be prepared for. But kind of in a different sense than I guess we've been thinking of. That's just enough. So Freddie, you want to come up here and read a passage for me? Luke
35.
12, yeah, Luke 12, 35.
12:35.
How does he have to read it?
Peter said, "Lord, are you telling this parable for us or for everyone?" And the Lord said, "Who then is the faithful and prudent manager whom his master will put in charge of slaves to give them their allowance of food at the proper time? Blessed is that slave whom his master will find at work when he arrives. Truly I tell you, he will put that one in charge of all his possessions. But if that slave says to himself, 'My master is delayed in coming,' and if he begins to beat the other slaves, men and women, and to eat and drink and get drunk, the master of that slave will come on a day when he does not expect him, and at an hour that he does not know, and he will cut him in pieces and put him with the unfaithful. That slave who knew what his master wanted, but did not prepare himself or do what was wanted, will receive a severe beating. But the one who did not know and did what deserved a beating will receive a light beating. From everyone to whom much has been given, much will be required, and from one to whom much has been entrusted, even more will be demanded."
So I guess basically what it's talking about there, and it's all parabolically a story, but it's kind of talking about how, it's relating that story to kind of like the second coming of Jesus. So what it's saying, is we don't really know when we're going to die, and we don't really know, what the future holds. So, if you wait your whole life, you're kind of like waiting, and you're like, oh, I guess I've got, my whole life to like become good, or I can like goof off now. Like, it doesn't really matter. Like, it's trying to say that the things that you're doing now really do have an impact, and you always have to kind of be ready because you never know what's really going to happen in your life. And specifically, it's talking about like things like death or like the second coming of Jesus. Like, I guess you never know when something like that could happen. So if you're not like ready for it all the time, it could happen sometime when you're not ready. And I guess, obviously from like the beatings and stuff in the story, it's trying to show that it's something you don't really want to happen. So I guess to kind of illustrate the message, we're going to do a skit for you guys now. So could Brad and Siobhan come on up?
Okay. Sorry.
This is very organized.
Okay. Okay.
Hey, actually, then I'll get it, because I have to leave the room anyways.
I always find it interesting when the Christian themes are reflected in popular culture. For example, in the parable we just heard, there's the line, "Much will be required of the person entrusted with much, and still more will be demanded of the person entrusted with more." There's a movie that was out a few years ago called Spider-Man, where that same theme came into play. Did you see it?
No.
Who saw it?
No.
Yes.
I saw it.
Yeah, I saw it.
So in the movie, the wording was a little different, but the idea was the same. Uncle Ben told Peter Parker that with great power comes great responsibility, and this was something that stuck with Peter as he learned how to use his superpowers and decided what to use them for, good or bad. Anyways, what do you say that we go off of the lesson plan for a couple of minutes, at least until Brad comes back? Does that sound all right?
No.
No.
No? Well, whatever.
Yeah.
Because
Why do
instead of
hats?
talking about that movie and how Peter Parker is a good model of a Christian, I'd rather talk about this really cool movie I saw recently called Hot Tub Time Machine. My cousin said that. Yeah. Do you think it was?
Hey, Siobhan! What are you doing here? I leave the room 2 minutes to go find a script that you terribly left in the room so that we couldn't do this skit. And can you please explain to me why you're off traffic talking about that movie?
Well, it's because you came back before I thought you would.
Seriously, Siobhan, I'm not trying to be funny here.
Sorry.
Thank you, I appreciate your apology, but still, do you know why I'm upset?
Sure, it's because I didn't stick with your plan. You trusted me to do this talk and teach the middle school youth something about this parable, and I blew it. Does that about cover it?
Yeah, that's about right. And the thing is, you're usually a fabulous crew member, one that I can always count on. And you usually offer these wonderful young people an opportunity to grow. And I'm grateful that you share your time, your talent, your treasures with them, just like they would learn if they were going to the Go and Be retreat. But I can always count on you to do the right thing. Well, most of the time.
Except today.
Well, it doesn't have to be except for today. In fact, maybe you didn't know it, but I think you helped them understand the parable.
I did?
Yeah. Jesus came to the earth to live among us. And he established God's kingdom on earth. The fulfillment of the kingdom is his coming. But it won't be completely fulfilled until he comes again. And God promised to all of his children that he will come again someday.
I was going to talk about that.
Right. Well, the point of the parable from Luke is the early apostles figured that he was coming right back. So they figured that 5, 10, maybe 15 years tops, Jesus would be right back. And well, what happened? He didn't come back. And then he hasn't come back yet. And every generation has thought that they would be the last generation. And so, sometimes people, they were goofing and probably got distracted, got goofed around. However, Jesus was trying to warn them that it would happen according to God's schedule, not their schedule. So he may not come back right away.
Oh, I see. In the story, the servants represented the apostles, and the master represented Jesus. For the apostles to be able to share in God's glory, for them to participate in the fulfillment of the kingdom, they needed to be doing God's work and ensuring the kingdom was fully established on earth. They had been entrusted with this important responsibility, and Jesus wanted to make sure they understood just how important it was.
Correct. And in that, there also is the message for the parable for all of us.
Of course, the servants also represent us, who are still waiting for the second coming of Jesus. As Christians, we have the same responsibility as Jesus' apostles to do God's work of building up his kingdom. When Jesus returns, it would be good for us to found doing that important work and not procrastinating.
Good job, Siobhan. Great work. Now, let's all get to work.
No, you guys. Don't.
That was terrible, Ben.
Pretty bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what can we do, Ben? How can we make this a better skit?
You gotta want it.
Okay.
You gotta act. You wanna take your audience. You wanna take them for a roller coaster ride, and you wanna show them your story. So listen. This is what I think. This time, you're both gonna act, and you're gonna do everything you can to impress the audience. But it's kind of like a contest. So you're both trying to grab their attention, and at the end, we're gonna see who they like more.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
No, don't do it again.
Oh my.
Shorten it! I wouldn't fight the...
Okay.
That's shorter, you guys.
Yeah, that's what we want. Shorten it.
So wait, okay. I always find it interesting when Christian themes are reflected in popular culture. For example, in the parable we just heard, there's the line, "Much will be required of the person entrusted with much, and still more will be demanded of the person entrusted with more." There's a movie that was out a few years ago called Spider-Man, where that same theme came into play. Did any of you see it?
Yeah.
No. The wording, well, too bad. The wording was a little different, but the idea was the same. Uncle Ben told Peter Parker that with great power comes great responsibility. And this was something that stuck with Peter as he learned how to deal with his superpowers and tried to understand how best to use them. Well, what do you say we go off the lesson plan for a couple of minutes, at least until Brad comes back? No one wants to see him.
No.
Sounds all right. Good. Yes, we're going off the lesson plan. Because instead of talking about that movie and how Peter Parker... Put the chair down. As a model of good Christian, I'd rather talk about this really cool movie that I saw recently called Hot Tub Time Machine.